A heightened sense of urgency tonight, no doubt. You heard the Treasury Secretary say it. Checks sent out to Americans within 2 weeks. Our Kayla, Tausche, Steve Liesman joining us now with more on the government stimulus and the impact it could have. It's good to see you both. Steve, I begin with you on what you called tonight the kitchen sink.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve definitely acting with a heightened sense of urgency, as you said, Scott. They, in the last hour, rolled out a massive program. It's called the Primary Dealer Credit Facility. And you don't have to get hung up in the technical name. What it is a place where 24 dealers out there who are primary dealers with the Federal Reserve can bring almost any security that they have to get it funded for a term of overnight up to 90 days. They can bring securitized credits of all sorts there, including corporate debt, including even some equity assets they can bring there. They can bring international agency, whatever it is. This program in 2008, Scott, I just looked it up. It financed over time in a rolling basis about $9 trillion of assets. Now, some of these assets were rolled several times. At any one time, there was $150 billion out there. But basically, what the Fed has done over the past 3 days is say any asset out there, not any asset, but almost any asset out there, the Federal Reserve will finance, including a big move this morning, the commercial paper funding facility where businesses go to get short-term loans to fund the operations of their businesses. So the Federal Reserve is putting in place right now almost all of the backstops it put in place during the Great Recession. There's still a few programs left that it might yet do. But because of the way the financial plumbing of the system has gotten strained and pressured, the Fed is coming in and basically saying, give us that paper. We will fund it for you on a lending basis over a period of time, or even outright buy it from you, and they will come in and provide the liquidity the market needs to trade. Basically, Scott, we have a problem here, and the problem is this. The economy is shutting down. We haven't figured out how to fund it. We need to figure out how to fund the economy to get from here, where we are right now, to there when the economy opens back up. There are loans that are needed. Their assets have to be funded. And the other thing that's happening, Scott, that's very important is that people in the credit markets are trying to get out of the way of those credits that can default over time. And so there's a lot of hot potato going on. But what the Fed did tonight was bring out a major piece of its artillery to provide funding to asset and credit markets so the economy and the financial system could continue to work.
Steve, we appreciate it. The other problem, of course, that the government is going to have to deal with, Kayla, are millions of people who need assistance. The Treasury Secretary today throwing out some very big numbers and a big potential number tonight regarding unemployment.
Yes, Scott, this is a situation that is developing by the minute. I was speaking to sources just as we were coming on the air about exactly what was discussed behind closed doors when the Treasury Secretary visited Republican senators on Capitol Hill to propose this $1.3 trillion stimulus package that includes everything from $550 billion in direct cash payments and tax relief to $100 billion in targeted industry relief to $300 billion in tax-deferred payments. And I'm told that in those meetings that the Treasury Secretary said that if Congress does not pass this package, that unemployment could touch 20%, trying to highlight the dire consequences that could await this country if Congress does not actually move forward this package of unprecedented proportions that would deliver that money directly to Americans. I'm also told by sources both at the White House and on Capitol Hill that the idea of a payroll tax holiday is not dead. President Trump likes it, and companies of all sizes are still making the argument to the West Wing that this is the most effective way for the administration to help these businesses recoup lost revenue as their businesses suffer amid the coronavirus outbreak. I'm told by these sources that we will know more tomorrow, but the situation is fluid. Finally, Scott, on those dire consequences of Congress not acting, the Senate is not acting on a smaller package that the House passed last week. week. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell today said that the Senate would take up that bill that would allow for roughly $105 billion in value of paid sick leave to be taken. But there is opposition from Senator Rand Paul, and that vote will now be pushed to tomorrow. So there are many pieces on the chessboard to move here in Washington, but certainly this is a fast developing situation, a lot of money at stake, and a lot of stakeholders really invested in the outcome.
Kayla, thank you. Steve, do you want to react to some of Kayla's reporting?
Yeah, I think what people need to think about is there are three aspects to the response to this crisis. The first and most important that you haven't heard, you'll certainly hear later in the show, is the public health response. That's the front line. That's the most important. Keeping people alive, limiting the spread of the virus. You heard that today in a long press conference. What Kayla's talking about is the second most important thing out there, which is the fiscal side of this thing. Getting money in people's pockets, making sure that people still have money to spend, making sure that when this is passed, there's funding or money that they have in their pockets for economic activity. What I'm talking about is the third tier, monetary policy and credit markets, which is making sure the financial system is working. It's taken us a bit of time, Scott, but it does appear to me as if the authorities in all three respects are getting their act together, rising to the occasion of the challenge here. What Kayla said about the Senate not passing that smaller bill, a little ominous. My best guess is they get their act together and pass this stuff. But that is the second and most crucial part of the response. Fiscal side is going to have to respond. Fed has put monetary policy in place. Public health officials appear to be getting their act together, too.
Kayla?
Well, to that end, Scott, I mean, the public health apparatus is launching into action here. Just today, the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, held a press conference where he said that the Pentagon would be deploying millions of masks, that they would also be deploying thousands of ventilators. They would be dispatching two military ships that would serve as mobile hospitals on both the East Coast and the West Coast. And they would also consider further activation of the National Guard and Reserve to help in some of these hardest hit areas. So you are seeing that. In addition, the Vice President Mike Pence urging all construction workers to donate any of the N95 masks that they've obtained for construction work to hospitals. This is a whole of government approach. As Steve mentioned, it did take several weeks for us to get here, but it is in full force at this moment, and the government is urging all different arms of this apparatus to mobilize.